When you dive into the books of Daniel and Revelation, you come across this prophecy of a final, world-spanning regime, and it's filled with these incredible symbols. We're talking beasts, dragons, mysterious numbers, the whole shebang. So in this explainer, we're going to decode one of the most common interpretations of this prophecy, piece by piece, so we can really understand the structure of this prophesied world system. All right, let's get into it.
But here's the thing. Before this global regime can actually rise, the world has to be brought to its knees. And the prophecy is crystal clear about one thing. The whole stage is set during a time of trouble so severe, it's described as being unlike anything else in all of human history. It's right out of that chaos that this new world order is prophesied to emerge.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the setting, the time of trouble. Then we'll introduce the three key figures who are really running the show. After that, we're going to decode the symbols of the regime's power base, the 7 heads and 10 horns. Then we'll look at how it actually controls the globe, and we'll wrap up with the prophecy's ultimate message.
Okay, so let's dig into that setting first. This powerful global system doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. According to the text, it's born from the ashes of a period of just unparalleled global turmoil.
This final intense period is actually given a specific name, the Great Tribulation. The prophecy lays out a 7-year timeline, and this refers to the final half, the last 3.5 years, which is described as literally the most difficult time humanity will ever have to face. And get this, the text is incredibly precise about the timing. This period lasts for exactly 42 months. This is the specific window of time when the central figure of this regime, the Antichrist, is given complete global political authority. So, who are the masterminds behind this 42-month global government? Well, the prophecy describes this trio of figures, sometimes called an unholy trinity, and they work together perfectly to establish and run this new world order. At the very top, pulling all the strings, is the dragon. The text identifies him as Satan. He's the ultimate source of power behind the entire operation, but he doesn't rule directly. Instead, the prophecy says he gives his power, his throne, and his authority to the two key figures on the ground. And that authority is handed over to the first beast, who you probably know as the Antichrist. He's the charismatic political frontman, the public face, and the head of this global government who rules over the entire world. And then, backing him up is the second beast, known as the false prophet. His job is all about religion. He performs these deceptive signs and miracles to direct all worship away from God and points it straight toward the political leader, the Antichrist. He basically creates a global religion that's all about worshiping one guy. And this is where it all clicks together. Look how they work as a team. The dragon brings the power, the Antichrist has the political machine, and the false prophet handles the religious devotion. It's a perfect, terrifying fusion of political, religious, and spiritual control, all rolled into one. So you might be wondering, where does this political kingdom even come from? Well, the text uses this powerful symbol to explain its history. The beast has 7 heads. Let's unpack what that means. In this interpretation, those 7 heads are 7 world empires that came one after another. Now, the common thread, the thing that links them all, is that each one of them conquered and oppressed the nation of Israel. It's a timeline that starts way back with ancient Egypt and runs through Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and it all leads up to this final, future revived empire, which is where the Antichrist is said to show up. And the text itself gives us this incredible little clue to anchor the timeline. The author, writing this around 95 AD, says that 5 of these empires have already fallen. One is, and he's talking about the Roman Empire, which was in power at that very moment, and the other has not yet come, which points to an empire still in the future. And this is what makes the Antichrist's position so unique. He's called an 8th king, but he's also of the 7. What that means is he comes out of the lineage of these historic world powers, specifically that 7th final empire, but he himself becomes a totally distinct ruler. He's like the ultimate culmination of this entire history of world power. Okay, so if the 7 heads are the historical foundation, what about the 10 horns that are also on the beast? Well, these represent the immediate power structure, the guys actually running the day-to-day of the final kingdom. So what are these 10 horns? The text is pretty explicit here. These aren't just a metaphor.
They are interpreted to be 10 literal kings, a coalition of political leaders who make up the governing body of that final seventh empire. And the text gives us some really specific details about them. They come from the same geographical area as the old Roman Empire. They only rule for a very short, specific period of time. But here's the most important part. They are all of one mind, and they voluntarily hand over their collective power and authority to the Antichrist. They basically become the enforcement arm for his global regime. So, we've got the leaders and the power structure, but how does this regime actually manage to exert total control over the entire planet? The prophecy lays out a very clear 3-step playbook. It all kicks off with this single, absolutely stunning event. The Antichrist suffers what looks like a fatal wound, maybe an assassination attempt, but then he's miraculously healed. This fake resurrection is the catalyst. It causes the entire world to just be amazed, and that's what leads them to follow and ultimately worship him.
And that event is what kicks the whole system of control into high gear. First, you have deception. The false prophet starts performing all these miraculous signs to convince humanity that the Antichrist is divine. That leads to step 2, religion. A unified global system is created that's centered entirely on worshiping this political leader. And finally, that control becomes economic. The famous mark of the beast is required for anyone to participate in the economy, to buy or sell anything at all.
Now, after laying out this pretty dark vision of total control, the prophecy suddenly shifts its focus. It moves away from the mechanics of the regime to a direct message for the people who might actually find themselves living through all of this. The text is brutally honest here. This regime will persecute anyone who doesn't comply. It's described as making war with the saints. But it pairs this terrifying warning with a promise that those who do the persecuting will ultimately face justice. And it's that knowledge, that certainty of a final reckoning, that's presented as the source of endurance and faith they'll need to get through that time.
And that leaves us with one final thought. The prophecy goes into painstaking detail to describe a system of absolute political, religious, and economic control. But its final message isn't about the system's power. It's about the endurance of those who resist it. So what does that tell us about the ultimate focus and the real purpose of this ancient text?